We've got more than 30 people jumping in, so probably expect a few stragglers to come on in the next few moments. Thank you for giving us your time this evening. Jason, Leighton, and myself are hoping we can share some good tips. Hopefully, you can learn a few things from us, and in return, we maybe might learn a few things from you too, which would be fantastic. So you'll see our guest here, Jason, is joining me tonight to share some advice around digital businesses. And we've got Leighton Wells, who is also extremely accomplished, who is going to handle the Q&A and throw in some expert advice as well. So tonight's event, we'll be running for just under an hour and a half, and we've got, and it's part of the Digital Innovation Festival. So the Victorian government runs this festival every year, and this is the third year in a row I've been involved. I think, Jason, it might be the second year that we've collaborated and run some things together. I'm not sure if it's the second or third, but it's a great festival put on every year by the Victorian government, and it's running. It started yesterday, and it runs all the way through to the 8th of September. So I got a few more people joining the meeting room. Let's see if we've Leighton, if you got a second, I might let you let the other people join. And the festival runs all the way through to the 8th of September. There are hundreds of events similar to this one online, and you can go to the website DIF, so that's dif.vic.gov.au. That's dif.vic.gov.au to see this recording of this webinar and lots of other live webinars over the next 2 weeks on many digital topics. We're also going to email this presentation to everybody who registered for today. So, yeah, what I might do is, Jason, I'm not sure if everyone can see you, but we'll let you say a couple of words about yourself.
Yep, so I think you've been through that, haven't you? That slide, yep. Yeah, so I've spent 27 years or 26 years in the IT industry. 20 of it was big corporate and government IT in Melbourne. And, you know, a couple of years before that in high school as well, actually, so it goes back even further, back before there was a Windows. Most of the corporate career, I covered design, which was user interface for applications and websites and the like. Infrastructure, so servers, hosting platforms, networks, email, and all the other back-end stuff that people don't normally see unless it fails. Also, a fair bit of cybersecurity, cloud infrastructure when that became a thing in the early 2000s. And all the way along, a lot of process improvement and IT strategy, along with a number of other areas.
You're bringing a lot of that know-how now to small businesses in the Mallee and beyond.
Yeah,
yeah, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. And Leighton, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea for me to. There's Jason's bio there, and everyone's going to get a copy of these ones. But we might a couple of words about Leighton, who's in the background pulling the levers for us tonight.
Yeah, so I think I've brought up my video there. Hopefully everyone can see and hear me. Yeah, so I've been working in marketing and events for some time now. And I suppose famously in 2017, we brought out Steve Wozniak out to Geelong, who's the co-founder of a little company known as Apple. I'm sure everyone's heard of that business. And that was a great experience. But I've been involved in branding and brand development for a couple of decades now, and yeah, really love being involved in this kind of thing. So, but anyway, I'll hand it back to Paul. That's enough about me.
Fantastic. So we're looking forward to your expertise, throwing in some things there as well. So, so today we've got quite a few topics, and as I mentioned, we'll go for just under an hour and a half. We want to allow some time. We ran this event last year and we've updated all the content, but last year we probably raced through it. We did stop for a lot of questions and answers, and we do encourage you to put your questions into the chat window you'll see there in the bottom of Zoom. And then at the end of each section, Leighton will read out some questions for us, and we'll turn to them. But we want to we want to allow a bit more time for Q&A this year, and not hear our own voices quite as much as we did last year, which is why we made it slightly longer. There's the topics we're going to cover. So I will jump straight into them. They pretty interesting times we're in right now. We don't really need to spend too much time on that, other than the fact that we have seen over the last 18 months this huge transformation digitally of so many more people, consumers, businesses, education, the legal system. Everything is going online, and that's really the goal and the objective of this webinar today, is that it creates a lot more opportunities for the businesses who and businesses, organizations, community groups, you name it, who improve their digital presence and their profile, because really, it's fair to say that digital is really closing that city and country divide. And you'll see some statistics in a moment, which Australia Post just released, and it presents some massive opportunities for regional businesses, and COVID has accelerated those opportunities. So there are a few silver linings to the unfortunate situation we find ourselves in. And I think the businesses who embrace this transformation will grow, and some of the ones who and some businesses will fall by, won't see those opportunities. So the research which Australia Post released last month, it's their annual report on e-commerce, and the source is down there at the bottom, which you can Google. But basically, we've seen more than a 30% increase in online shopping growth in the 12 months until June, and that followed an equally impressive year before that at the beginning of COVID. Victoria, now we've experienced, now in our 7th lockdown, we've seen almost a 50% growth in online shopping. And this is Australia Post, which is recording this from all its deliveries it's doing. And that's an impressive growth. And that does present opportunities for businesses up and down the country. Another interesting statistic there that Australia Post reports is that there's now, most households have shopped online in the last 12 months. I did a bit in my research. When Australia Post said 9.1 million households have shopped online, I was wondering how many households can there be in Australia? And one source suggests that it's 9.8 million households. So nearly every household has shopped online in the last 12 months. And in June itself, 5 million households. So home and garden, pet products, baby products, homewares and appliances, all these categories are seeing very impressive growth, and those opportunities there for small businesses. And as you're picking up as a bit of a theme from the last few moments, is that this change in behaviour is creating opportunities for not just the big businesses, but even small businesses around regional and rural Australia. Jason put this quote in last year. And Jason, I thought maybe I might get you to say a few words on why you thought this is a good quote to put in there.
Yep. It's actually from back around 2017, 2018, when the shift to online buying was really picking up. And in one of the accompanying articles about it, they actually posed a good question, which these days would be basically phrased as, back when we went on holidays, how did you find where to eat and what to do in the location that you went to? Studies that were being done even back then, it was all online. No one was using newspaper ads or other paper-based mediums to search. They were all searching on Google. And so not having your business on the internet means you're not appearing in those search results. The other one was, there was a study performed by VeriSign in the US. These are all US stats, was all we were able to pull. But it said that 84% of consumers believe that a business with a website is more credible than a business without one. So if you're trying to compete, having a website gives you that edge over another business that doesn't.
That's a good, memorable quote. I like the one that I read that which has been associated with Jack Ma, the founder of Alibaba, which we used last year. But I really like it. I think it's quite aspirational that he says that that you can be the smallest business with a good idea, and if it's good enough, you can sell it from anywhere in the world to anyone. And I really feel that the internet, things like the NBN and the digital economy is a real enabler for people with the right idea to break down those geographical divide that we've had in the past. So the first main topic today, so just a reminder, feel free to put your questions into the chat. We'll probably have a quick drinks break at the end of the websites section to take in a couple of questions. So put them in there and Leighton will tell us what's coming through. So so really your website, it's an important window into your business, which is a little corner of the internet that you own. Unlike social media, we're really only borrowing space on places like Facebook, Instagram, and so on. You can have thousands of followers on these social media platforms, but there's no guarantee that your messages are going to reach those customers or followers, because they're all driven by an algorithm. Whereas if you do have a website, it creates that window into your business, and you do have a lot of control over that and credibility that comes with that. So there's a few different platforms which we thought we might take a moment and might get Jason and Leighton to contribute their thoughts on this point if they feel I'm not covering it adequately. But it's really quite incredible now that you can have a website for as little as $20 a month. Jason's updated that to $14 a month. But once upon a time, and it was only the big companies in Australia which could really afford to have an agency to build a website. And now these, as most people are aware of now, a website is within reach and within the budgets of micro businesses and home-based businesses. Most common platforms are what we refer to as website builders. They're more of a drag and drop solution which has pre-built web templates, and a lot of these can be very professionally designed. So they're a very good starting point, and probably a really good fit for small businesses on smaller budgets. And why I recommend platforms like Squarespace, and you see a few other ones mentioned there, is that I've always believed that the learning curve is quite modest when it comes to these drag and drop website builders. You don't really need a lot of IT background, and you don't need even IT support. You can do a lot of that, and all of that is covered in your monthly subscription to these platforms. You've got a few which are very much focused on e-commerce, and Shopify is often referred to as a a very popular tool, and you got some more high-end ones like BigCommerce and Magento, which I don't personally have experience in, but Shopify is often at the tip of a lot of people's tongues, probably perhaps a bit more accessible to small businesses and small business budgets. So there's some of the platforms for the businesses who are really focused on selling online. And an area where I'm probably less qualified to talk about, and some of you might have experience with it, but the more complicated or complex websites for businesses with more complex and ambitious needs, you're probably looking at tools like WordPress, Magento, WooCommerce, and so on. These are ones where probably as your small business becomes a medium business, its requirements become a bit more bespoke. You'll be looking at these kind of solutions like WordPress. But with this additional functionality becomes additional complexity and risk. And that's where you're probably, my opinion is, you're probably going to need a person with WordPress skills or a developer to be supporting you on that journey to put these kind of websites in place. Feel free, if anyone has a comment there, to throw it in there about WordPress, or if anyone's got experience, throw it into the chat. But I really feel, I think Jason would agree with me. I really feel the drag and drop website builders are a really good place for micro businesses and small businesses to begin. And WordPress is something where you might be a bit more of an advanced user or a bigger business, and you might start to play with that. But I've done a little table for the people who may not be quite sure if their business needs a website, and whether even a Facebook profile or Instagram profile might be more than enough. So again, social media, it's free with strings attached. You don't own it, but it's free. Whereas there is a small cost. There can be a small cost and rising for a website. The interesting thing about a website is that you have total control of that. If you continue to pay for your domain name every year and your website costs every year, you have total control over what's on that. Whereas Facebook or Instagram, these kind of platforms can come and go overnight, and they certainly will change their business models. And many businesses in recent years are seeing that if their revenue and their whole business model was based on attracting customers and sales through that social media platform, that can be quickly eroded overnight if Facebook or Instagram change their algorithm or their business model. So yeah, I wouldn't put, I suppose the message there is not to put all your eggs in one basket, or certainly into one platform only. I'll probably just finish on the usability aspect there, and that is that you do have a lot of control of how you organize your content on your website and the way you structure it. Whereas I believe that a lot of social media content is very linear and organized by date. So thankfully, Facebook has, I think, re-added the search, quite a useful search tool into business pages. So you can search for content, but yeah, it's not, it can be a bit complicated to find something that a business has published a long time ago. So a bit of a different user experience. So a couple of best practices there. Now, Jason, you happy to give me a break from talking? I might get you to maybe give your thoughts on some of the best practices.
Yep. Or if you want to do the first couple of points, and then I'll take on from there.
Yeah. So I think a fair few people in this call have probably designed websites and been on both sides of that relationship, either being the designer or the client. But it's really important, if you want a website for your business, to have a clear vision for that, and to set aside, time and budget every year after you've launched it to maintain it, because it's a very creative process. And if you're working with a website designer, you really do need to be clear about your needs and your expectations, and agree that in writing with that provider, because it can be anything creative can be very subjective and a very frustrating experience and expensive. So use a website designer by all means, but define and agree what those expectations are early on to avoid those problems. Maybe a couple of words. Yeah, Jason, you're a bit of an SSL expert.
Yeah. Yeah. So by now, given that it's been a requirement since around 2018 from Google for search rankings, all websites should have SSL certificates installed on them. So that's where when you go to a website, the browser shows the little padlock next to the address of the website. They, in agreement with Microsoft, who between the two of them control upwards of, I would say these days, it's about 85% of all internet access happens between their two browsers. Over this year and next year, they're tightening down so that even photos and other material on the website also needs to be behind SSL certificates. And where you'll see this is the padlock will start to appear on websites, but not be happy looking. So it won't be green or it won't be a solid padlock. And that's them starting to warn that the websites are going to start getting blocked. By next year, they just won't let images load, for example.
Yeah, I'm noticing still a lot of websites in the address bar say that they're not secure. And that's probably a takeaway for a lot of people today, is just to really look at, make sure the website is secure, and talk to your provider. I mean, feel free to send Jason or Leighton or myself a message, but talk to your provider and make sure that your website or the website you're about to do a transaction on has a SSL certificate.
Oh, definitely don't do a transaction if there's no certificate there.
Yeah.
Yep.
SEO, I mean, that's a topic which we could dedicate a whole webinar to. So that's really about all of the things you could do on your website to improve your website's visibility in Google search results. So everybody wants to be on page one of Google. Not everybody can be, but there are a lot of things you can do. A lot of what they call technical SEO and on-page SEO. But really, at the end of the day, Google just wants to match somebody doing a search with the best result. And you could be the best plumber or cake decorator in your town, but if you don't mention it on your website, Google can't really put you up there on page one if you don't really help Google do its job. So there's a lot of things you can do. A lot of free resources, and we'll try and do some webinars on this in the future, but a lot of free resources there that we can that you can find online. And this is another SEO one, which we won't spend too much time on, but yeah, really try to avoid having big, heavy images on your website, because it slows down your website and Google doesn't like it. And it'll show you that it doesn't like it by making your website ranking tumble down the pages. It's also really important, we're all guilty of this, is to keep reviewing your website. And I would recommend putting a reminder on your phone or on your whatever tool app you use, just to check your website once a month and check the pages. One of your staff, one of your employees might have left, or maybe your blog hasn't been updated for 6 months. Maybe you've got a new mobile phone number, but just keep checking your website from time to time, because Google will reward you if you do update your website.
Yeah, I was going to add that, because that was one of the changes last year they brought in.
Yeah, content freshness is one of the things. And for those who aren't aware, when Google calculates a ranking on its search results, it takes into account more than 200 factors. Nobody knows all the factors, but the age of your domain name, your SSL certificate, how slow is your website to load. There's so many different things, content freshness, hundreds of factors to get that number one ranking. But yes, and that's where using things like the Google Search Console and Google Analytics, which we're not spending time on today, but they're great free Google tools to look at the traffic and understand the users on your website. And anything we really need to talk about the Web Vitals, or can we move on there, Jason?
Just that it was something that Google brought online at the end of June this year. So moving forward, it's going to play a really big part in your search index results. You can have the most perfect SEO in the world, and if the core Web Vitals score is low, you're not going to be on the front page of Google anymore. They've made it front and center now of like no other ranking gets more priority than the core Web Vitals. If you do a search, you'll see there's a whole range of tools that Google have thrown up there for free. Microsoft's coming on board with it, and once those two are on board, that's basically the game in terms of if you need to do it or not. And just around the platform that's fully monitored and managed and hosted in multiple locations. An interesting stat is that around 30,000 websites get hacked every day because of poor security. Poor security is a range of things, but fundamentally, if the platform you use is properly managed and monitored and secured, then you won't be one of those 30,000 every day that gets done.
Good. Question, Leighton, any good questions coming in on the chat?
No questions at the moment, so please everyone feel free to ask a question. Although I did notice Amy says that their local health service doesn't have an SSL, so that's no good.
Yes.
Certainly if you're dealing with any or any companies or organisations on a regular basis and they don't have an SSL, you certainly want to alert them to that fact, because that's something that they need to have, especially if you're talking about sensitive medical health data. You certainly need to have security on the site. So yeah, good one. Thanks for raising that, Amy.
Yeah, a couple of things I've seen coming in on the chat. Ronis is telling us that, Jason, your audio is popping in and out, so maybe come a bit closer to your mic.
Paul, I've got a question.
Jim, yep, is that you, Jim? Yep.
Yes, it is, yes.
Go for it, please do.
I've got, one of my organisations has got about 2 or 3 websites going, and we've updated, or we tried to update it, but we couldn't. So we finished up creating a new one. How do we get rid of the others? Because they're still appearing on the page, on the screen. We need to be able to get rid of them somehow, and I don't know how to do it.
There's probably no short answer to that question, other than I think, unless Jason wants to give a short answer.
I don't think there's a short one on that.
Yeah, I think the best thing to do, Jim, would be to email Jason or myself, even if you put it in the chat, a private message in there in the chat to us with the addresses of those things. Or we can actually, maybe it's best if we contact you afterwards, because each of those websites might use a different platform, and people might have forgotten the passwords. People might have moved on, especially if they were volunteers. And it's just a matter of working out what the websites are, which platform they were built on, who can log into them, and then somebody can take the steps to shut them down.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jim?
We need to get rid of them now, because the latest one is 3rd in line, and the other, they keep popping up on asking the first one. Of course, that's no longer applicable.
Right. It sounds a little bit urgent now, so we better give you some support after this on that one. So we'll follow up with you, Jim, on that. Yep. Now, question from Sustainable Living in the Mallee. Can't think who's from the Slim group. But how do you get SSL certificates, Jason?
So depending, it varies by platform, but if you're on any of those drag and drop platforms that Paul mentioned, like Squarespace, Shopify, etc., they all have generally it's just a single checkbox that you have to tick, and they do the rest for you, because most of them use a service called Let's Encrypt, which is free these days, which Let's Encrypt did that in support of trying to get the web secure. If it's like custom built websites and that, it'll be the developer or whoever does the hosting platform will need to install the certificate for you.
Yeah. Very good. Well, we might, feel free to send us an email, because Jason's probably a bit more better placed than me on SSL, and any particular question. I haven't got it, I think, on the last slide, but we'll when we send out the slides, we'll put our contact details, and please ask Jason if you've got questions about the SSL. We better move on, because we're only up to our second point, and I'm going to keep domain names pretty short. We do have some bonus slides at the end of the presentation. I did put some of the domain name slides at the end. For those, when you receive that, you can read them. But basically, there's a couple of different types of domain names. You can't have a website without one, and you really should be registering. Jason registers domain names. I register them. There's probably other people in this call who can help you register a domain name. But you really should be looking at registering those to protect your business name, your product names, and so on. And we've got some really important. I'll almost probably jump straight into the best practices here in the interest of time. So really, a bit like what I said to Jim a moment ago. Make sure you know who your provider is, because you shouldn't be registering a domain name and forgetting who it is and forgetting your password. And you really need to keep your login at your fingertips. You also need to make sure that you are what they call the registrant, and that's the registered owner of the domain name, because it's very possible that you've used a friend or a business, or somebody you use, might be your accountant or an IT person. They might have put themselves down as a registrant just to save time, but it's really important that you are listed as the registrant, because that means you are the legal owner of your domain name. And you need to make sure that structure, because some businesses change their legal structure from a partnership to or sole trader to a proprietary limited company. And if you don't, you need to update that company structure with your domain name listing and these kind of things. But make sure that your name is on it, because whenever the domain name is going to expire or renew, that email reminder will go to you or the person who's listed. So it's really important that is you. And make sure it's if possible, a generic one. I notice we've got the sustainable living in the Mallee group here on the call. So that should be using the community group's email address, not someone's personal one. You don't want that person to move on or leave the company or the group, and then those emails go to somebody who's not there anymore. You should be setting up your domain names to automatically renew. So once you log in to your portal, so make sure you've got control of your portal when you log in. Make your domain names all set to auto-renew, and also have them set to locked. It's incredible how many domain names I notice aren't locked. And this is a way that it stops other third parties from try to modify those domain names or transfer them away from you. Locking them and setting to auto-renew are really important aspects, as well as making sure your credit card details are always up to date, because you might have your domain name set to automatically renew, but your credit card might have expired. And there's a link for the Australian domain names where you can go and look up your domain name and do a bit of a health check on all the domain names you've got. That's just for the .com.au domain names listed there.
Paul, I just want to add, if I can, why have a domain name? It's amazing how many businesses I see at bobspainting@gmail.com. And I think, the message there is it's your digital asset, and it's a great way to brand yourself. So register your business name as a domain name. And that way you're creating a really great professional image for yourself.
You're capturing that corner of the internet for you.
That's right. Yeah.
As well as, and it's a separate topic, and we'll talk about that in a moment in the business email about somebody might have Bob's Plumbing as their website address, but they still might use their Big Pond as their email. That's That's a bit of a topic we'll touch on in a moment. Now,
Jason,
you want to tell us what the hell we're looking at here and why it's here?
That is one tiny section of one of Microsoft's global security centers from their cybersecurity division. That globe in the background is a holographic globe showing real-time attempts at hacking and phishing and other malicious activity around the world. This blue screen up on the right, given where the bright dots are, that would have been where their main data centers were at that point in time, because there's 2 dots on the eastern seaboard here in Australia. We've actually got 4 data centers for them here now. These are the guys that the FBI hire when they need help. These are the guys that respond to nation state attacks on behalf of the US government, etc. This was just a small window into just how high tech that is. And most of that's actually driven by artificial intelligence these days.
Yep.
And the people are there to do what the robots say.
And that's our little segue into your email.
So email is the #1 attack vector still for hackers, either to get ransomware onto your machines, to get data off your machines to then ransom back to you, to get details for your banking, etc. The #1 way that they're still doing it is via email these days. Business grade emails basically dominated by Microsoft and Google. That's the Microsoft 365 and Google Workplace now. It used to be called Google G Suite products. Business grade email comes with additional protections that consumer email don't, such as additional AI solutions protecting their business customers. AIs can respond faster than humans, so it makes it harder for new attacks to get any sort of widespread traction. When you pay your $7 or $8 for the bottom tier of service for either of those 2 companies' products, you're using the same systems and the same platforms that someone like a Toyota globally with 180,000 people are using. So this is being one of those areas that previously was the domain of only big corporates to have the kind of protection needed, that now the smallest business for $7 a month can have the same level of protection. It looks more professional, which increases trust with customers and suppliers. Again, bobsplumbing.com.au, looks more professional than bobsplumbing@gmail.com does. And you can trust that that email more as well. And finally, business grade email provides multi-factor authentication, whereas most consumer services outside of Microsoft and Google's own ones, most of the consumer ones don't. Why does that matter? So up in the Swan Hill area that I cover, in June alone, I helped 6 people that had their Big Pond accounts hacked. Big Pond doesn't have multi-factor protection. If they had multi-factor turned on, based on research out of the US, 99.9% of hacking attempts fail if you have multi-factor authentication. It is that big a difference.
Now we have a slide dedicated to this. So some people might be scratching their head now thinking, what is 2-factor authentication? And we have a slide or 2 dedicated to that, which will make it a lot clearer. Let's move on to that one. So a couple of best practices there.
So use business grade email from either Microsoft or Google. No one has the scale of infrastructure and protection services that they do either. Always make sure and use 2-factor authentication for your login, which we'll touch on that later. And in terms of how you then access that email, if you're not doing it through the web browser, then stick to the Outlook and Gmail apps. That way, there's much less chance of things going awry. So don't use the mail app built into your iPhone, for example. Use the Outlook or Gmail app instead.
Excellent. And we can understand why people don't always still have their Big Pond or Gmail, because they might have they might be paying for some Microsoft or Google services, but there is that technical step that many of us may not have the confidence to then set up that email, and that's where they do need to talk to somebody or turn to Google and do some online learning to because they're probably already paying $17 a month or whatever it might be for their Microsoft 365 and these kind of things, and it's actually included probably. It's just that technical step that some people haven't done.
Mm.
All right, we might keep jumping along. Got so much to cover. Maybe a couple of words around file storage.
File storage, yep. So generally, if you're a business and hackers are coming after you, which they will do regardless of where you are in the world, it's your data that they're after. So local storage, meaning on a file server or something else that you've just got locally, it requires constant updates to keep it secure and constant backups in order to keep that data safe in case whatever machine it's on dies. Commercial cloud storage, on the other hand, is a lot better protected. It has a lot of the automated artificially intelligent systems to safeguard it these days. And in terms of physical security, there's at least four layers of physical security for anyone to try and get at where the data is actually kept in those commercial cloud storage sites. It also has better protection against data loss. As an example, the Microsoft Azure data centers keep 3 separate copies of the data inside the data center. So 2/3 of one of those buildings could disappear and the data would still have a high chance of surviving. Faster average internet speeds via the NBN and mobile broadband, and soon Starlink, has made cloud storage entirely viable across most of Australia now. The days of trying to do it on old ADSL dial-up, thankfully, largely behind us for a fair whack of the population.
Mm.
And we'll get better over the next couple of years for the areas where that's still not the case. Google Drive for Business, Microsoft OneDrive for Business, and SharePoint Online, which are their 2 solutions. Those would be your primary ones. If you were paying for email, business-grade email, you would pay the extra $2 a month roughly and get the cloud storage with it as well. An alternative is Dropbox for Business, made themselves a name because they were very early to the market, whereas Google and Microsoft were almost playing catch up to them and have since surpassed. But Dropbox has been around for a long time, so it knows what it's doing as well.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say many of us are probably paying for file storage through our Microsoft or Google business accounts and maybe not even using it fully, or even aware that we've got it. A couple of best practices there.
So best practices, and there are a couple of provisos here. Move to cloud storage, such as Google Drive or Microsoft OneDrive or SharePoint Online. Backup computers to cloud storage. So both Google Drive and Microsoft OneDrive include sync clients that, when set up on your PC, means that every time you save a document, a picture, or anything else, it's automatically just synced up to the cloud for you without you having to even think about it. Now, the provisions on both of those is that certain industries, such as healthcare, and some of the finance sector, have additional data sovereignty, which means which country is it in, laws and specific privacy regulations, which either prohibit or severely restrict the use of cloud storage for them. But unless you're in one of those 2 industries, it's regulatory wise, there's not so much of an issue. Or local government itself has a other set of regulations they have to deal with, which I had to deal with when I was back at Vic Roads. Use a NAS for local storage if needed. So if cloud storage isn't viable. Synology is the brand of the company that sort of leads that market space. They're basically self-contained little units which tend to provide their own redundancy and keep your files a bit more safe from being lost. If you are using a local file server still, and it's on any of the Windows Server platforms prior to 2019, they really shouldn't be. Either upgrade to Server 2019, move to NAS, move to cloud hosted storage, or move to something based on not Windows. Yeah.
Now, before we move on, a question came in from Catherine. Does anyone else think Gmail sucks, or does it get better in business grade? Probably you know that better than anyone, Jason.
Gmail in business grade, you actually have the option of using Outlook as the email client instead. They provide specific tools for accessing it via Outlook, and not in the way that the consumer one works via Outlook. There are other sections, other things in Gmail that are different. So simply having a business version of Google means it instantly cuts off almost half of the usual tracking and advertising and other things that happens in consumer Gmail. The same happens on the Microsoft side. Business Outlook versus consumer Outlook are two different worlds in that respect.
Excellent. All right. So business listings, I'll give you a break because you're going to tell us about online security in a moment. I'll say a few words around business listings. So, I mean, things like, well, Google My Business and Facebook as well provide an opportunity for at no cost to list your business and to be found online. So that could be very complementary to a website, and certainly a low effort or low cost approach. You'd go as far as saying or Bill Gates would probably even update his quote to say, if you don't have a website and have a Google My Business profile, then your business is will not be in business. Because if somebody now types your business name into a Google search, you will have seen businesses popping up on the right hand side, which is showing your hours, your address, your reviews, and links to your website, and even now products and services and other types of things. So your Google My Business profile, it's free, and every business should be doing it, especially if you don't have a website. Get your Google My Business one on there.
I'd also add in there that the Google My Business profiles are the entire basis of whenever you do a search for, find tire stores near me. Whenever you do one of those near me or nearby searches, that is entirely reliant on the Google My Business profiles. So they really are key for.
And again, a lot of those searches will be done on a mobile phone as well. So I suppose when people are looking for something near me, they're on their phone, and that's the first thing they're going to see on Google is a Google My Business profile. And equally, you can jump onto Facebook and create a profile for your business or your community group, etc.
Paul,
yes,
if you've got a website, how do you know? How can you find out just how many? You call it hits or something like that? How many people are looking at it?
Yeah, good question, Jim, because we haven't really dedicated any time in this webinar. We only really gave it one bullet point, but there are tools like the tool that the person who created your website, that tool they used has probably got some basic analytical tools to tell you how many people are visiting your website and where they've come from. On top of that, you can set up your Google Analytics profile to track the people as well and get even more information. So there are tools, and certainly reach out, contact Jason or myself after this, and we can send you some links to read about it, and certainly probably even develop a webinar in the future for people about these kind of topics. So yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So yeah, the listing. So with Google having so much market share for searches, Facebook's active users continues to grow. Although some people might argue that might be slowing as younger people perhaps jump off the network. And interesting to see that 64% of the Australian adult population, or the total population, is active on Facebook. So some really good reasons there, particularly with the reviews, because you can ask your customers to leave reviews on your Google My Business and your Facebook profile. So with so much usage on Google and Facebook, you really need to have those free profiles and ask your customers, really put in place a process to ask your customers to leave you a review. And we can't not talk about for a moment all the other directories online. So you could go onto Google or Bing and search for your business name or your community group or your association. Find those listings, because some of them might be 5 or 10 years old, and they may have even been set up by a previous owner of the business you're involved in. So make sure you've cleaned up those other listings outside of Google and Facebook. So you can jump over to business.google.com and create your listing, or if it already exists and you didn't create it, you'll find a button there which says claim this business or claim my business, and you can begin the process to take control of that profile. Keep your listings up to date, so don't set and forget about that listing. Make sure you keep updating them. Your Facebook one, I put a little graphic there, screenshot. So in the top right corner of Facebook, you can click on those 9 dots and go through to create a page for your business, your association, your community group, that way through Facebook. Do an audit of your listings on all the other directories, and proactively seek out reviews from your customers. If there's one thing I think you learned from today, or take away from today, and that is to really aggressively try and get reviews from your customers every month. Okay, Jason, a few words about security. And perhaps a word about our webinar coming up on the 5th of September, where we'll deep dive more on this.
Yes, what Paul said, the webinar coming up on the 5th of September, we'll deep dive more into this and a lot of other things. Two-factor authentication. So anybody that's done internet banking by this stage would have used two-factor authentication, whether you realized it or not. It's the earliest example, and unfortunately the one that banks in Australia are still using, is when you get the SMS code with that one-time code number to punch in to finish logging in some way. Basically, no IT security firm recommends using that anymore because it's just too insecure and too easily hacked. So what the recommendations are is to use apps, either apps on your phone, or, and I'll see how much I can, where I hear somewhere, it's sort of flashing in and out, little hardware tokens, physical bit of hardware that you need in order to log in. Those apps can't be breached, or haven't been so far, and the hardware keys haven't been hacked either before. So two-factor, turn it on any and every service that you have. It will protect you. As a worst case, if SMS is the only option, use the SMS, but most of them will give you some other option these days. If you do any online cloud-based financial stuff using, say, Xero or QuickBooks Online, chances are that you didn't have a choice but to turn it on. And that was because of a financial regulatory change that was made by APRA a couple of years ago, that cloud providers providing financial accounting packages in Australia had to make 2FA on, basically. Password managers. So these allow you to use stronger passwords. It removes the need to remember passwords. You only need to remember the one in order to get into the password manager. Password managers can be secured with two-factor authentication, so you would definitely do that. It provides a way to securely store other information as well, such as the Wi-Fi network passwords or any other sensitive information you have. And replaces the notepad, diary, post-it notes, or scraps of paper where passwords are currently stored. Although the irony with those post-it notes is that, particularly in a home environment, we've gone full circle, and if you don't have a password manager, the latest recommendations coming out is to go back to using the post-it note or diary to keep it locally so that you can keep a stronger password. But don't carry them around with you. Purely in a home setting where you know who's going to be able to find that bit of paper.
Couple of questions coming in, Jason, but I might just share an anecdote. I use a tool called Evernote to take all my notes, and my account was hacked late last year in December. I got one of those emails come through in around Boxing Day. One of those kind of emails we probably all ignore, telling me there was a suspicious login from on your device. And this time I did open it, and it was somebody on an iPhone in Brazil trying to access my account, or had to access my account. So that was the catalyst for me, because I use the same password a lot for a lot of my things. And that really rammed it home that I needed to finally get around to getting a password manager. It is a bit of a time-consuming process. We could almost probably run a webinar on it. Once you get started, it's simple, but it's just a matter of actually phasing out and logging into all those important websites where you have an account, and changing it, generating a random complicated password in your password manager, putting that into the website and saving it, and just progressively doing that on all the important websites. But now every day I turn on my computer and I have to do the two-factor authentication and my password manager to open most things I use every day. And probably to the day I die, I'll always tell people to do the same, because as you mentioned earlier, there's so many people trying to hack us. And I don't think anyone on this call would not have got a text message this week with those ones. What were they, Jason? The voicemail, those voicemail things?
I actually didn't get any of those.
So
Android,
again, everyone's trying to hack you. We're all increasingly busy, connected on so many devices. We do need to be doing things like password managers and two-factor authentication. So definitely an important thing there. A couple of questions which come through there on the chat. And please do put the questions in there to put the, maybe select the co-hosts when you're putting in question there, because they're all coming to me, which I don't mind. But so firstly, I'll go back one step. Warren is asking, and this is really an open question to everybody, is there any value in Yellow Pages online anymore as a business listing? Anyone want to throw a question out there, their own experience, because that is one business which has been certainly impacted by Google and digital. Anyone want to throw a comment out there about that one?
I tell my clients,
Google is the go-to place now for your listings, for searches.
I tell my clients no, save their money. I'm pretty sure Yellow Pages actually offers a free tier now.
Yeah, Leighton, you better throw us one in there for us.
I would just echo that sentiment from Jason. I can't see the value in paying for a listing in Yellow Pages when Google and Bing and others are more prevalent, but certainly Google dominates the market. But you do have other search engines, people like alternatives like DuckDuckGo, and there are others out there. So, but I can't see the value in paying for a Yellow Pages listing.
I think Michelle was just put a comment in there agreeing with you, Leighton. I see Google as the front door to your business. I think most people do. And to answer you, Warren, go back into the 1990s and earlier. Yellow Pages were it's just a factory to print money, really. Do they offer a free or paid service anymore? I'm not even sure if many people even go to check anymore, but I'm sure their sales force is still calling around offering people ads or listings. But I really can't give unless somebody else wants to jump in there, I can't really give a solid answer on that one.
Paul, there is another question coming through. Michelle was just wondering what your recommendation, Jason, is with password managers.
Bitwarden. So BIT.
Might be on the next slide. There you go.
Yep. First one on the next slide.
Right. Okay. Yep.
And that's a good reminder, is that we are going to email the slides out. This video webinar will be uploaded to the Victorian Government website for the DIF Festival, the dif.vic.gov.au in a couple of days' time. we'll put it on our social media as well. But you'll be able to watch these slides back.
It's DIF. It's just here. Look.
There you go, DIF. There it is. I'm glad you didn't point it. All right, look at that. I pointed the right way in reverse. But and we'll email out the slides. So we really wanted to structure this presentation to have some real takeaways or best practices for each chapter. And Michelle, the answer there is what Jason mentioned is I use Bitwarden myself. I think Jason might use it. It doesn't mean necessarily it's the best. Jason might say it is. But there are some good ones there. But we're both using Bitwarden.
Bitwarden's what I deploy. So on that slide, Bitwarden, 1Password, Dashlane, LastPass, and TrueKey. TrueKey is owned by Intel, which is at the center of most people's computers. Two of the other three on that list, so not Bitwarden and not TrueKey, but two of the other three on that list were hacked in the last 12 to 18 months. So, yes.
And for anyone who's new to that, because I was 12 months ago, I was totally new to password managers. It is a thing that you install on your phone. It's an app you have on your phone, and it is an app you can have on your computer as well. So whether on your phone browser, or your computer, your browser. So, but it's just a way of having really complicated long passwords that you log in and use them to log into things.
I saw there was a question about how do we make it easy for clients to give reviews? I'll throw to you guys as well. I'll just add in before. So with my clients, 2 years ago, people didn't know what a QR code was due to recent events we're all well aware.
A QR what?
QR, exactly. I remember when you first saw my business cards and you were like, what's that little... I actually have them print out a QR code, which you can make them free online. There's a bunch of tools out there for it that link to your Google. In your Google My Business profile, Google will provide you a link to hand out to people to get reviews. So I get them to do a QR code in the shop that people can scan with their phone to leave a review on the spot very easily that way. The other one that I've actually seen a few businesses doing is they put it as a link in their emails. You know, like your service with us, click here to leave a review. You can even put them on your Facebook posts and Instagram pictures and just anywhere that makes it easy for people to one click to leave a review.
Now, did we mention that question then? So yeah, so for people to ask for reviews, what I tend to do is I copy the link. There is on your Google My Business profile, you can copy the shortcut link or to that area where they can leave a review, and also you go to the reviews section of your Facebook page and copy that link as well. And I just tend to forward those two links to people if I want to ask for a review, and that just they click on the link and it takes them right through to where they can do it. So yeah, I think a shortcut link through to the Google My Business review section and the Facebook review page. Kelvin's have to comment in here on the chat that he was with Yellow. I think he means Yellow Pages, which cost about $900 a year. He stopped paying, but he still gets results from Yellow Pages with his search results. I hope you're talking about Yellow Pages, Kelvin, and not Yellow, because I think there's another directory called Yellow. But yes, he stopped paying.
Yeah, I just did a quick check. So they do offer a start for free with a free ad, $0 a month for Yellow Pages. So they definitely have a free tier.
Keep putting in questions in the chat, because Ronis is asking, where do you find 2FA on the phone, or am I confused? And that's really, I'll let you say that better, Jason, but yeah, start in your app store, but maybe say a couple words where people can start.
So the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. The most common two used, I think, was on that slide.
The previous slide.
Yep. So Google Authenticator and Microsoft Authenticator are probably the two most widely used. Authy is another good app. And if you end up going to the next level beyond that, which is something like the YubiKey, which is the thing I hold up, they actually have their own authenticators. But Google Authenticator, Microsoft Authenticator. And when you're setting them up, if a service specifically requests one or the other, don't worry about that. It works with both.
Question though, I'm not an iPhone user, so are they all available on iPhones?
Yes.
Yep. There you go.
Yep.
I wonder whether Apple has their own authenticator as well, which we haven't listed.
I haven't seen anything come out from them yet. The closest they have is their Apple keychain as a password manager.
Yep, good. So we've got about 20 minutes to go. So we might try and fly through the last couple of sections. Productivity tools, which we've sort of hinted at, but there are some great tools. Evernote, please help me fill in the dots here, Jason. But I think Evernote's a great one for note-taking.
Microsoft OneNote.
OneNote. And what I find a bit of a lifesaver with Evernote is that you can search. So if I made a note, met somebody 3 years ago, if I just put their name down or a keyword that I remember them by, that will come up in search in your notes. So I think the search functionality of note-taking apps is incredible. Do you want to say a couple of words about the productivity tools, the task management?
Yeah, so this is an area that gets a lot of focus these days. Task management, workflow management, process management, it can go by any of those names generally. There's a number of tools out there. It can do things from, so I deployed for one of the businesses in town. They're using it to manage packing requests in the warehouse. And they said it's made a big difference to how fast they're able to process stuff through. With a auto repair place, just managing the state of the cars at the service center. So previously the front office and the service center workers would have to walk back and forth between each other to find out where things were at. Now they can just look at the screen or look at their mobile via the app. It also comes with a lot of these and know exactly where things are at all times. Down to personal task management tools like To-Do that's built into Google and Outlook, or you can use Todoist or Asana. There's a number of tools.
And ClickUp, which we both use.
Yeah.
We should be typing a few of those names into the thing. It might be on the next slide, but I'm finding myself increasingly using the to-do list on my Android phone. I'm not sure if it's just called To-Do, or I think it might be called Tasks. But again, it's a lifesaver to leave all these reminders. But there's some amazing productivity tools there now to help you create that productivity in your business or in your personal life. So a couple tips there you want to provide there, Jason?
Yeah, so settle on a note-taking app and start using it, be it OneNote, Evernote, Google Keep. Evaluate what processes or tasks you could do better or be better at managing. And just have a look at some of the apps out there for it. Things like Asana and ClickUp are really good for process-based task management. So where you might have a series of repetitive things that you need to keep on top of. Similar to Microsoft Planner, Microsoft To-Do and Google Tasks are both good for those one-off sort of personal, I've got to remember and do that item type things. Sunsama is actually an app that I came across about a month ago and absolutely been loving it. And it actually brings together my email, my calendar, and my other tasks, my ClickUp tasks, plus my personal tasks, and brings them all together in one place so that I can manage them much more effectively. Because like email, you can get task overload if you're not careful.
You mean, you haven't got a task manager like...
you just disappeared. That's a clever...
There's my task manager. Some of us still use those ones in addition to the digital ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. Great. All right. So Leighton has thrown a few words together here for us. This is my slide, I suppose, but we can't talk about digital business without talking about social media and advertising. We touched on, you've got the fact you can do advertising in Google, you can do advertising in Facebook and Instagram all the other platforms, including LinkedIn. We've got things like email marketing and graphic design. These are things which could all have dedicated webinars, and we're really not doing it justice by putting it into a couple of slides. But you can see a few statistics that Jason put in there this week with the statistics to Google, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, and how heavily they're used. Probably want to say, probably worth saying something about MailChimp too, because I think for businesses who have now got their website and they've got their social media presence, they really need to be looking at MailChimp or one of those email marketing tools to nurture those relationships with their customers by email. Some people might argue that email is dead or things get lost in email, but still, really, it can be a lot of research suggests it's a great tactic or strategy to complement your social media and your website and all the other things you're doing. And Canva, and that's a workshop in itself, but a great Australian company which helps people to easily create and design graphics which you can use for your social media. It could be wedding invitations. It could be menus for your cafe. You can create little videos and animations. It is an amazing tool that anyone should have a play with if you're not already doing it. It's an Australian company with a valuation in excess of $1 billion now. Is a fantastic success story, and I think that success is warranted because it's such an easy tool to really help small businesses and community groups and sporting clubs create and stand out on social media.
You've had a question come through?
I haven't seen it come through on my end.
Yeah, no, I've had one come through saying, which would be the best app for appointments, as I'm still using a diary and send text with reminders of appointments, but very time consuming. I'll let you guys answer this as well, but recently the two that I've had experience with is Timely and Square Appointments, but Acuity, 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 which is for LinkedIn through Squarespace, is also got a very good solution for it. All three of them enable you to, if you want to, turn on online bookings through Facebook and Instagram and your website and your Google business profile. All three of them will do automatic text reminders. Yep, and they'll sync generally back to your calendars as well.
There's another Jason,
Microsoft
Calendly as well too.
Yeah,
Calendly.
I'll put a couple. Feel free to put them into the chat.
Yeah, I wouldn't put Microsoft bookings. It's probably not going to exist much longer.
Okay.
As a product.
I've used that a little bit, and it is included for free in your Microsoft standard thing. But yeah, maybe that might be superseded. But there are some tools there. Timely, Jason's thrown in there. So Acuity was a standalone product. I'm not sure about it anymore, but it has been purchased, I believe, by Squarespace. It is heavily integrated in the Squarespace websites now. I'm not sure if you can still buy it separately, but that's one tool which costs about $20 per month. And there's a lot of tools. Who asked the question? Because a lot of tools in that
Square. One of the good things with this.
Because, for example, a lot of physios and osteopaths and any health clinic, you've got tools like Clinico. So there's a lot of these apps which have been developed, particularly for different kind of industries. So the ones we've put into the chat here are the generic ones, but there are a lot out there.
Square's good in that it's free if there's just you that it's booking for.
Okay. Yeah.
That's always a win. Who doesn't like free?
So I hope we've helped there, but there are a lot. And again, I would say with businesses now, a really important tool to have, to really create some more productivity in your business. Now, I might jump over to Leighton if you wanted to take up a word about.
There's a question which has come through about marketing automation and MailChimp too. I don't know. Do you want to field that one before I do this, Paul? Marketing automation.
It's something I haven't really had time to nail very well. I'm getting better at MailChimp.
I think what the users potentially refer there, I think it's from Janet. So, yeah, I mean, I suppose it's things like when someone sends you an email, or they respond to an email, or they open an email, that there's other actions that happen as part of that.
Triggers, yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So if they open an email, behind the scenes, their email goes into another category that says, well, this person's interested in your business. And that way you can engage with them at a different level. Thanks for checking out our last email on such and such. You might also be interested in, or that sort of stuff.
Yeah. It's fair to say we're not using any marketing automation with our webinar. You will not be getting 10 emails in the next 10 days.
I'll just switch that off.
If anyone here has put their email address on a website, any of those big websites in the last couple of years, you will know that you get an email every day or two from them. That's your marketing automation. And then normally emails that you design, you pre-design, and your system will send them based on the status of that user. A new customer, maybe somebody has cancelled a service from you, and then they get a particular email to try to get them back. All these different types of things that you can set up to be automated.
That's when you're starting to wander over into the CRM territory, customer relationship management area.
But again, fantastic. I mean, fantastic stuff that businesses should be looking at, this kind of automation, because these are the tools which can really create time efficiencies in businesses now.
There was also a question about any productivity tools best for our business with two of us working separately. If it's separate, but the occasional bit of overlap, something like a ClickUp or Asana, or really any of those. Yeah, a lot of them can be used individually or as a group.
I'll put a couple of those names that we're mentioning into the chat. We have mentioned them on the actual slides, on the best practices slides, but yeah, what you're probably going to find is you're probably going to pay about $20 per month per user if you're separate people. So yeah, if you had a team of 4, you might that monthly cost might increase the more people you invite to collaborate. But there's some good tools there for that one. Leighton, we're entering our last 15 minutes, so maybe you can tell us a little bit about marketing, Leighton, being a marketing guru yourself.
I'll keep this short and punchy, as I've alluded to somewhere in the slide, or at least I thought I did. Maybe it's a different version. Yeah, so look, in essence, you want to create a social media profile for yourself, and it doesn't have to be anything elaborate, and it's not something you necessarily need to update 12 times a day. It's just good to have a presence on those platforms, even if it's just the occasional image of a product or something that's caught your eye that relates well to your business. It's about telling your story, telling the business's story. We can run, and we probably will actually. We'll run a workshop around tagging hashtags and things like that, other accounts, and setting yourself up with the right handle. So whatever comes after that should be at whatever your business name is. So that's just a very, very thin slice of Facebook and Instagram. But certainly have those as part of your total digital footprint. LinkedIn is a great one to expand your professional network. And again, these things don't have to be heavy in terms of the amount of effort that's being put into them. It's more about having a presence. There's a lot of information that you can pick up from LinkedIn in terms of thought leadership. People post different articles on different topics all the time. So they're good places for learning, and LinkedIn has an education component to it, whether you're wanting to educate other people or learn some things yourself. So it's a good learning platform in that sense. Twitter is, I'll be interested in getting your thoughts on this, Paul and Jason. Twitter is one of those things where it tends to be industry specific. Some industries seem to use it quite heavily. I'm involved in sports science a little bit. It seems to be, for some reason or another, that a lot of sports scientists seem to use Twitter fairly heavily and post a lot of things on there. My advice to businesses would be, if you're on there, maybe use it as a way to direct traffic to your other social channels or your website, as opposed to necessarily using it purely from a marketing perspective. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, if I go first, Jason, I was going to, so we don't talk at the same time, but I was just going to say, I think people have got really good opinions and real thought leaders around a professional or an industry. It's fascinating to follow them if they're active there. It is massive in agriculture. A lot of farmers, posting photos of pest damage to their crops and even the progress of their crops after they've put certain chemicals or other types of products on them. It's huge in agriculture. So there are different. It's not as big as the other platforms. Obviously, politicians tend to gravitate towards it too. But I in the past have liked following individuals or particular topics there that I'm interested in.
Great. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to add, a number of the bigger companies tend to use it as a channel for sending out urgent messages. So when Telstra inevitably crashes about, as it seems to about once every other month, and they have a mobile network outage, the first thing they will do is send out a Twitter ping. When Facebook went down a couple of weeks ago, they didn't, but enough other people sent out with the hashtag Facebook down that it acted as a way of getting the message out. When Microsoft or Google, particularly Microsoft more so, if they have issues with their services, first thing they will do is send out a Twitter ping. They don't really use it for marketing, as like some sections in their business will, but primarily it's a way to get a message out. About the status of your business, basically.
Good. Thanks for that, guys. The fourth one, I think, actually, in terms of digital marketing these days, in terms of storytelling, is probably the most value contribution that you can make. It's going to attract the most eyeballs, and I do want to add the caveat that that's based on making sure the content is to the point, that it resonates with what you're trying to say and talks about the business or the product. Keep the video short, make sure the production quality is as good as you can get it, as in focus in on the product. Don't have it be a small part of the whole frame. So whatever video you're doing, if it takes you a few takes to get it right, spend the time doing it, because quality video will get your business, essentially. That's my tip, and practice. So that video is definitely worth the time investment. Brand assets. This goes a little bit back to that graphic design component. Maybe a graphic designer, you've got someone who can give you some tips around formatting images, or maybe it's that time in the life of your business to spend a little bit of money with a freelancer or a design agency to get them to sharpen things up a bit and provide you with some advice around formatting images correctly and getting your branding looking good on those different social media platforms, creating banners for your website, and sharpening things up a bit. And then search engine management and optimization we've touched on, but it's worth mentioning it again, just as part of that total digital advertising and marketing suite. It's one of those things it's worth spending the effort on, just to make sure that whatever you're saying on your website is an accurate reflection of the business and of your products and services, so that when Google is picking that stuff up, that it carries all the way through to the actual products and services.
I had a feeling we might have left one or two off there, but certainly we could have added Pinterest, which is quite a niche social network for people who like to pin, what they call pin, and create collections of visual things. I think it's probably quite popular with people planning a wedding or planning a big event, or even that kind of stuff. So it's very, very niche, very interesting. And I just wanted to double check if there's any other ones, because I'm sure we've left somebody out. I mean, and Snapchat, we didn't really include that there as probably a mainstream social network for small businesses to be using, but some people would be, as they would be using TikTok already as well. So Vets, you got some tips in there. I think, Jason, this is a slide that you prepared previously, but it's about the the importance of advertising with Google and Facebook. Unfortunately, having a Facebook page alone doesn't reach all the people who follow you, and you need to start looking at spending a few dollars to reach these people, particularly because you can target them. And the email marketing with things like MailChimp is to build that email list, and so you can grow and nurture those relationships with customers. And as Leighton touched on, use video as a storytelling tool, because if you're authentic and you add value in social media, people respond well to that. So our last slide before we wrap up is video conferencing. Do you want to tell us a couple of words about this thing, which really 2 years ago, pre-NBN, pre-COVID, was really quite a niche topic, but now it's, omnipresent. Yes.
So Google Meet and Microsoft Teams are both free to use as part of their respective services. They also both have free to use for friends and family type stuff. It caught everyone out in the industry when Zoom took off like it did last year. They'd been a really small player before that. There's other companies which, the general public hadn't really heard of that were bigger at the time. So they're free, so you get them as part of the respective offerings. Zoom obviously is the new kid on the block that everyone knows about, even after all of its security issues last year. But it learnt the mistakes that the next one on that same sentence, Cisco WebEx, had made in the past. So Zoom was actually set up by a guy that came from Cisco WebEx. WebEx has moved a long way in the last 12 months, so they're also very good options. They both have free and paid tiers. Google Duo is more of a personal thing than a business thing, but they expanded out so you can actually do up to 7 people in a call these days on Duo. Microsoft Skype has been around forever and a day, long before Microsoft even brought them. They added a new function last year. I think it's meetnow.skype or something like that. If you do a search for Meet Now and Skype, it should come up, where you didn't even need a Skype account in order to kick off doing one-to-one video calls with people anymore. And a range of accessories will greatly improve your video conferencing setup. So Paul, for example, has his, what is it, Rode?
Right, I'll hold mine up. So I've got my, if you can, once I get the thing, that's my Rode microphone. And hopefully you'll find that the sound hits better when you actually talk into a microphone. So much better having a dedicated external microphone than using the microphone which comes in your laptop.
So best practices.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yep.
Oh, I just had a couple of questions come through from Janet, was just asking how often do I post on social media to stay relevant and not be forgotten? It's this is kind of a business resource question as well as also oversaturation. I think in an ideal world, if you could post a couple of times a week and it could even be the same message to your Facebook and Instagram channels, that's good. You want to use tags that are relevant to your industry and to your audience. You want to use images that are good quality, is a good way to go. So 2 times if you can. But also remember, if you're posting every day or twice a day, it may reach a point where some of your customers actually become disinterested in your product and actually stop following you because you're over posting. So there is a bit of a balance there as well too. The other question was, can I post to different platforms at the same time? There are services like Hootsuite where you can pre-program. Not only can you post to different services at the same time, you can also schedule posts ahead of time, even 2 weeks in advance if you want to take a holiday and step away from the computer entirely, heaven forbid, then you can actually set all of that stuff up for you, and it's all done automatically.
I'd also just add as well that remember that if what you're posting on your Facebook page is, the business running a special on something or an introductory offer, don't forget to post it on your Google My Business as well.
Yep.
Because that will help the offer get found by people that are looking for it. People that are looking for it.
Good point. Sorry, go ahead.
Yep, no, that was all.
I'm answering a question to somebody, so I'll let you do the best practices while I answer someone's question.
Yep, so best practices. Leverage Google Meet and Microsoft Teams if you're using Google Workspace or Microsoft 365. They are secure and they're free to use after all. Cisco WebEx is quite fine as an alternative option. And of course, always set a meeting passcode to avoid uninvited people bombing your meeting. And as a meeting host, if privacy and or security is a concern, only use the paid tiers of Zoom, don't use the free ones. That way you get a lot more control over where and what happens to your meeting. And invest in hardware such as an external webcam and external microphone, key lighting and a green screen. Having a green screen behind you helps things like the virtual backgrounds to work much more smoothly as well. And actually, that's something I'd probably add in as a last minute one is create yourself a custom background. All the major platforms support using them now, and it's just that little bit of extra something that you can add into your video meeting. Yep.
Great. Just answering a couple of questions there in the background. So we'll wrap up there with the thank yous because you'll see these things. We've put a couple of slides in at the end that you can look at later. And feel free to email us. Basically everything we've talked about. I hope we're practicing what we preach. We do use a lot of these tools ourselves. I'll put a few things there that I use. Mallee Rising. Jason's put a few all the things down. I think he needs 2 pages almost now. He's got a lot more things to add there. What I really like about this, this topic we're covering today, and I hope people here have found it. Please feel free to leave us some feedback in the chat. Otherwise, we'll never have your feedback. But I think this is a topic which we could run, a couple of times a year, at least once a year, because the tools change, they evolve. And as we mentioned at the beginning, more and more people are going online, looking for web businesses online. There's the security risks. There's just our kids are online. It's just everything's so digital now that this content just needs to be refreshed regularly and shared with people, recorded and shared with people, because otherwise it can seem quite an overwhelming subject for an existing business to get online and grow that way. We really haven't done justice to a lot of the things. We didn't really talk about CRM, customer relationship management tools. There's amazing stuff out there now, which people can learn online. A lot of free education now, and all the providers have a lot of these education tools that if you've got the time and you really want to save money, you can learn in your own time these tools and put them into place into practice. So feel free. I haven't got any more questions in the chat. Anyone coming through there?
I was just going to add one more thing there, which is if anyone's involved with any registered not-for-profits, so that's registered with the Australian Charities Commission, definitely approach both Microsoft and Google, Salesforce on the CRM side, other businesses. Many of these businesses have not-for-profit programs where you can get their products for free or almost free. it's something that not a lot of people are actually aware of. So, yep.
Fantastic. I'm just putting the link in there for everybody for a reminder that our webinar on Sunday, the 5th of September, we'll be talking about cybersecurity. With so many families and businesses, kids, all connected on so many devices around the home, and 24 hours a day. There are so many now vulnerabilities, and we really want to provide an hour and a half of Q&A and resources, so to give people some tools that they can take away and protect themselves and their businesses and their families. So that's on the 5th of September at 6 p.m. So I'll put the link in there in a moment. And if everyone holds on for 30 seconds, I'll pop the link in there or jump onto our social media. Maybe Jason and Leighton, a couple of final words, just let me to type that message in there.
Yeah, I think there's so much we could drill into. I mean, we didn't even touch on process automation, which is another great topic to talk about with fancy tools like if this, then that, which we could have had an entire webinar just on how to automate some of your processes in your business. So, I mean, and that's another thing too. If you do have any ideas for webinars that you'd like us to run, by all means send us a message and we can put something together.
Yep, no, just what Leighton said, and yeah, just remember the core basics of digital business: website, social media, business grade email, domains. With that, you get a nice solid foundation to start you off.
Yes, and I'm hunting for that link to the cybersecurity thing, but it's not in my computer right now. But we'll send it out to everybody. That's in 10 days' time on the 5th, and thank you for everybody for giving up an hour and a half of your Thursday night. We've enjoyed preparing the webinar, and I've actually had a blast talking about the stuff. We're clearly all very passionate about it. We've had more than 30 people register for today's event, and hopefully if you all took one thing back that you can put into practice tomorrow in your business or at home, that's been worth our time, and thank you for that. And hopefully we'll send out the video and the slides, and hopefully we'll see you at our next webinar. So have a great evening, and thank you, Jason and Leighton, for your time tonight as well.
No worries.